traveling locally. We're slowly trying to distribute the properties internationally because there's incredible demand from outside to our region. But with the gaming, we started very much locally as well, but because it's more of a product than a service, it was easier to scale it internationally. Basically in our second, third year, about 40% of the traffic was outside of the region.
That's huge. So just very quickly, I think we've probably got time for one question from the audience. Does anyone have a question for Rina? Go on, don't be shy. Okay. Oh, we do, we got one. Sir, if you could speak loudly or wait for the mic, actually might be better.
Simple question. I was just wondering how you solve payment if you don't have any credit cards with a couple of your customers.
So basically, it was a bigger problem with the travel industry because the average ticket size is much bigger compared to microtransactions in a game. People might need to be able to pay like $500 at a time. So what we did was, we knew people had cash, but no way to transfer. So we were actually integrating our software with the physical travel agencies in the Middle Eastern countries. So people could actually show up at a travel agency, give them the money, and then the corporation would wire us the money for that transaction at certain intervals.
Thank you very much, Rina.
Thank you so much.
So next is Herman Narula. Herman's a young British entrepreneur. He's a first-time entrepreneur, a graduate of my alma mater, Cambridge University. His company's called Improbable. It's a new technology platform that's aiming to disrupt the games industry. It's in stealth mode right now, so unfortunately he can't kind of demo anything, and some of what he's going to say is a little oblique, perhaps, until he's fully ready to unveil himself in Improbable later this year. But Herman, please join us.
Hello. 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 Hello.
Yes.
Thank you, Simon, for that wonderful introduction. And the reference to me unveiling myself was also wonderful. So the thing about Improbable and being here is that we kind of feel like outsiders in a place like this. A lot of the virtues that have gone into the development of the great tech companies in the last few years, like simplicity and focus and clarity, are very hard virtues to maintain when you're trying to build fundamental technology, especially technology that requires an enormous investment of time and money and people. And the idea behind Improbable was very simple. We wanted to create worlds, spaces in which we could create massive simulations with an aim to changing the kind of experiences people can have in gaming, but perhaps other things as well. So the journey has been very different to traditional startups. It's almost been more like an academic journey. Out of Cambridge, we managed to grab first our friends, then our supervisors, then perhaps some of our professors as well. And the path to building something in isolation is very challenging and very difficult. It's very hard to remain focused. We're quite excited about finally having products emerging this year based upon our technology. But there's also a kind of anticipation and fear, because whenever you make such a big bet of your time and your effort on one thing, you always wonder whether the change you foresee is really possible. So the company's name, Improbable, I guess, is a reference to that fear. And we're excited to see what the year brings.
And so one of the things that you were comfortable sharing was that you've already, in 18 months, grown to 50 people, which is, you know, a lot for a stealth startup that hasn't yet launched. Tell us about how you hired those people. How many of them are your friends? How many of them are your friends' friends? Like, how did you go about assembling that group, and what were the biggest challenges?
So we had a serious problem. We wanted to attract some of the best distributed systems talent in the world, and we couldn't show them much. And we had to get their attention from major companies like Google and Microsoft. So we found we had to kind of wage a bit of a talent guerrilla war to achieve that. We sent mysterious packages, we would interact with people in all kinds of things, online games, other spaces, academic conferences, and we ended up being a sort of, a bit of a hidden secret among certain people in the fields we were interested in. And gradually our ideas kind of spread that way, and it became a little talent call, which grew our team. It also attracted funding as well.
And I guess when you look at the different ways that people use games today, obviously, you know, what you're working on is very transformative, but can you give folks a sort of insight of different inspirations that you had that might be existing games, or it might be something in science fiction that you've read, or?
Sure, I mean, the principle behind what we want to enable is that I guess most games today are canned content. You have an experience, and then that experience is disposed of. However, there are some things you see in the industry, games like DayZ, which you may be familiar with, and in online spaces like Second Life, in which the fun doesn't come from canned content. It comes from these emergent experiences that people have. I guess we wanted to follow that idea to its natural conclusion, which led us down the road of considering simulation at enormous scale.
And just to understand, so Improbable is a technology platform. Why did you make the decision to build a platform like that and not, say, build your own games on top of that as well?
Well, what little press there is about us is about how many game developers we've recently attracted.
All right, so you've attracted lots of other developers, but I guess the question is, sometimes when you build a new platform, that there's a fashion to vertically integrate and also build the applications. Not say all of them, but one or two of them. Just like, you know, when Apple launched this, there was, you know, their own camera and, you know, one or two other applications they built, as well as Google Maps and other things on it. So just how did you think about that?
So actually, we'd agree. Early on, we began very close relationships with customers to the point where we were basically co-developing some of the first products that are coming out this year. And we've announced some of those relationships elsewhere. But in our case, we were able to maintain such close relationships with them that we were riffing together.
Oh, that's great. So any questions from the audience for Herman and Improbable, which I realize, you know, some of what we've talked about is a little abstract, but nonetheless very exciting.
What do you do to attract the best talents?
We give them really, really hard problems. We pretty much sell them out on joining Improbable. We spend a lot of time devising challenges, some of which are impossible in our interview process. And it's often about that excitement, that intellectual excitement of working on what we work on.
One more, and then I'm afraid we have to wrap up. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Herman.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rina. Thank you, Herman.
Well done.
Most of all, thank you, Simon.
Pleasure. Good job.
Now the Germans are coming. Our next moderator is the chair for strategy and organization at the Technical University in Munich, Isabell Welpe. Welcome.
Hello, great to be back at DLD. I have the honor to introduce two entrepreneurs. I'll start with Frank. But first a question to you, the audience. How many of you write texts of some sort? Oh, almost all of you. Well, Frank has started a company that says, let us do the writing for you. Wouldn't that be something? Instead of you doing the writing, have his company do the writing? So I have the honor to introduce Frank Feulner, who is the CTO of AX Semantics, a company that does automated text generation. So Frank doesn't have a tech background. He studied German philology and political science, but is the CTO of AX Semantics today. Frank, welcome on stage.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to be here.
So, Frank, I understand you have a small presentation prepared?
Yes, actually, being a CTO, I was kind of eager to show you how the solution actually works and what you could imagine if you are confronted with automated content or a natural language generation application. Actually, how do I flip the slides?
Okay, well, I'll fill in with questions in the meantime. Now, Frank, how does one end up as a journalist and a writer at the technical lead at a big tech company?
Well, actually, that is a funny story because when I joined the company Exea, which is the home of AX Semantics and the whole product line, the company was actually focused on manually producing quality content, really high quality content at high prices. And around 2008, 2009, crowdsourcing and cheap and mass content providers were literally storming the market and pushing down prices. So we thought, okay, we aren't many, we can't crowdsource anything, but we can counter by using technology. So that is basically where AX Semantics started out.
Oh, interesting. So,
all right.
You have the presenter?
So meanwhile, I do have a presenter, and I've prepared something for you that is supposed to show you how a natural language generation application is intelligent and how it automatically generates content and text and actual speech from data, because that is what the application is actually doing. So this is the quiet state. First thing that the application needs to have is connection and access to a database, and some additional information on what information it is to find inside the database. Given that, the second thing it needs is an impulse, like for example, a customer requesting a text or a news event happening and being transported into the algorithm by, for example, RSS or an API or whatever sort of thing. What it then does is quite interesting, because there it gets really intelligent. What it does is assess the data and categorize it. For example, what patterns are there in the data, what thing or what type of event the data set is talking about, or even how does the data set compare to similar data sets and what is new and dramatic about this specific event. Funny thing is, this happens without connection to actual speech. It's a purely semantic model of a data set, which enables us to be quite flexible in the next step, which is connecting the semantic image of the data set to a grammar complex of any given language. So you have an abstract depiction of what the data conveys in information and how the text is supposed to look, and then you project it into any given language that we have trained grammar for. What comes out then is logically a text at the moment, which also includes meta text. It could be an HTML text, it could be cutting directions for a video or even program code. And that is also in the scope of actual applications for the software right now. So, I also brought you some slides on general difficulties, because there are some paradigms that we are really throwing effort into at the moment and that we are seeing at the basic challenges that NLG is facing until the reader experience is superb. Actually, I'm seeing two great trends which are starting to be tackled in the NLG scene, one of which is the circumstance that machines don't have a social nature by themselves. Because a machine didn't go to school, a machine doesn't have friends in the first place, so it's not socialized and therefore has difficulties assessing, for example, soft and cultural facts. It would be difficult for a machine to say why somebody prints "Je suis Charlie" on a t-shirt, for example. An approach in which we are trying to tackle this problem is providing the machine with world knowledge or semantic knowledge, basically connecting it to any kind of available data and establishing connections between the particular points in data and between any point in data. I'll show you a slide on how that works in detail later on. Building up world knowledge and a great stack of interconnecting knowledge gets you to another challenge which we are currently throwing massive effort into, and that is, ironic right now because I'm talking very much myself, keeping the machine relevant, telling it when to stop, given an almost abundant amount of information on any given topic. So, what is world knowledge? Yeah. To explain what world knowledge is and why it is relevant or could be the next big thing in NLG, I brought you the example of a football game between two German clubs, Stuttgart and Hoffenheim. If somebody, and that is actually possible at the moment, requested a text from our software about this game, the first thing the software would do is go and query all the available APIs on what to find out about the game. It might even do that recursively, so the amount of data you end up with after a few rounds looks like this. There is green data about the game itself, for example, the outcome, the place, the date, etc. But there is also peripheral data that is further and more distant from the original scope of the game. Like, for example, the game has participants, they are football clubs, but they consist of persons who all come with their own amount of data. Until you end up with something like this. Sven Ulreich, damn you autocorrect, actually turns up 2 data points which are really relevant for him. First, being married to a model, and second, having rescued a cute little dog. The question is, this information is available at hand and the machine is able to text about it, but a really big challenge is, how do we keep it from texting about it when it is supposed to text originally about a football game? So, given that the machine is able to do so, there are applications which are actually running at the moment in the following fields. As you can see, weather, sports, finance, and marketing are really data and number-driven fields of application. And if you look at the text types that are being currently realized in those fields, you see that the trend, and possibly the additional value of the solution, is that you can text very individual and personal forms of texts, given that also user data is available in addition to, for example, game data or meteorologic data or even product data. Everything can be personalized, and because text stemming from an algorithm is cheap, it is also viable. It is also a possible strategy for example, e-commerce or publishing players to do so and to enhance user experience by personalizing. So briefly, what is the future and where does that lead us with NLG? She's tapping her clock, so really briefly. Our postulate is basically that automation is going to be available in short time for pretty much anybody to use. I would say that the company that is able to provide an end-user solution for NLG is probably the one that's going to make the race. Another trend, which may be quite provoking, is that I say that big data is going to be upgraded or replaced to or by semantic data, data and context data with additional knowledge. Interesting, because this is Boda. How would that affect anybody who is currently writing text? In my imagination, as opposed to what many skeptics may say, the newsroom of the future is not going to lack humans. On the contrary, those humans who will be producing content in the future will be able to cover a much broader scope by using computer assistance. The content that is being produced by humans is going to be premium because they can invest time and they can put real effort in content quality, in research, and in all their strongholds without being distracted by recurring and repetitive tasks, like, for example, I don't know, like, for example, a event schedule or something that is present in every newspaper and nobody likes to write. Additionally, the scope is also being enhanced by the ability of machines to draw new insights from data that are probably not visible to the naked eye. Like if you imagine a stock report, for example, for a day, that is a whole lot of numbers which are not quite intuitive to read. So, to cut it short, because time is really running out, this is what the machine is actually producing at the moment. This is once a report on the price of aluminium and its development over a day, and an actual product for football. It's a game announcement and also a game review. And that is something you can already obtain from an existing machine.
Very good. Thank you, Frank. So, time for a few questions of clarification. So in one sentence, Frank, what's your vision/strategic goal?
Well,
One sentence.
I guess I can do it in a half sentence because it's automation for everyone.
Automation for everyone. Okay, next question. Which professions are safe from your software and your company?
CTO, I guess. No. Actually, I don't see a drastic impact because machines are doing baby steps in becoming intelligent, but are way away from being autonomous in a Skynet way. Okay. They're not going to replace humans, but instead help them. That's my vision.
Have you done tests? Can readers actually tell the difference if a text has been generated by you or by a journalist?
Unfortunately not.
Okay.
Which leaves us with a great deal of responsibility.
Okay, how do you deal with creativity? How are we doing on the creative side?
Actually, our company consists of about half the personnel in editors and journalists. The machine doesn't contribute original creativity, but is able to take creative input and reproduce it rapidly and broadly. We even employ journalists ourselves to give the texts the human touch that you can realize when reading them.
Okay. Well, it sounds very impressive. I would like to open up for the audience. Any questions to Frank or what the company can do? If that's not the case, then I'll ask a very last question. Well, Frank, I read on your webpage that you often do the development on a Friday evening night drinking beer. Is that true?
In my case, it's actually not beer, but Club Mate.
Okay.
But yeah.
It's too bad, because I wanted to use this to introduce our next panelist.
So sorry.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
And our next panelist is Katharina Kurz from Berlin. She is the CEO of a startup company that deals with something we all enjoy, with craft beer. And she has prepared a little presentation and will tell you more about her young startup company.
Thank you, Isabell. Yeah, so we're probably the only offline startup here. We're a very young startup from Berlin. And so the real demo is going to be tonight at the DLD party, where you can enjoy as many beers as you want from us. So I'm very excited about that. This is our brand. If you have no idea how to pronounce this, you're not alone. And frankly, we don't really care, because the most important thing is that you like our beers. We pronounce it Berlo, and it's actually the old Slavic origin of the name of Berlin. But you know, we also like other versions, like Brillo is also fine, or if you want to be really fancy, you can order a Berlo, please. So basically, craft beer, the term originated in the US in the 80s because they only had like 5 big brewing companies, and they produced kind of like, yellow-colored water that smelled and tasted exactly how it sounds. So out of necessity, young like hobby brewers really started experimenting and creating really cool new beer styles. So craft beer means handcrafted, passionate beers. It means experimenting with new styles or even ingredients, and the people and the stories behind the beer, they really matter. And this brings an exciting new diversity to beer. And before you say, how dare you in the beer country of Germany, like even in Germany, we need new diversity to beer, because there's more to it than just Pilsen, Hefeweizen, and advertising geared to guys watching football. This is us. So we're 3 founders, and if you want to do a little bit of stereotyping, people always think the guy with the beard is the brewer. So this is Christian, my co-founder. He's not. He also has a tech background like me. So for us, it's been actually amazing to move to a handcrafted product. It's been really nice to order raw materials and organize a production. The guy in the middle is the brewer, so he actually knows how to really produce it. The nice thing is that so Berlo is really our interpretation of a contemporary beer brand, and it's great because it really combines the vision and kind of elements of the three founders. For example, for me, the design aspect was really important, and I really wanted those hearts in there. And then for Michael, the brewmaster obviously was all about the product. So we only use organic malt. We know our suppliers personally. We only work with small companies. So this was really important. And for Christian, it was all about sustainability. So, we're rooted in Berlin. We donate 5 cents of every beer sold to social initiatives in Berlin. And so Christian is also the chief esoteric guy on our team. So we actually energize our brewing water, which means we take 50 kilograms of gemstones and crystals and put it in the brewing water, and then, before it's being brewed for a few hours so that you can feel really, really amazing when you do it. And so just to finish up, so these are the actual bottles. We have 2 beer styles out right now. A nice Berlin interpretation of a Helles. I'm really excited to see what everybody from Munich thinks about that, and a wonderful pale ale, so you can have as many as you want tonight. And we're super excited about that. And I want to, end with these words: "Save the planet. It's the only one with beer."
Thank you. Thank you for the talk, and also thank you for sponsoring drinks tonight. We're all looking forward to that. Katharina, I was wondering, Coca-Cola has made a public statement saying how digital technology shapes its business model. Is Berlo actually a tech company?
Well, I jokingly said we're an offline company, but obviously, only in the sense that we make an actual product and we sell it to bars and restaurants. But you can't exist as a brand today and not being digital. So obviously, and especially because we first try to establish a local brand in Berlin and then expand from there. This is usually important, everything that's on Facebook and Instagram, and we're trying to, get bloggers to write about it. The craft beer scene is hugely social, so there are these apps, it's called Untapped, and people go to a bar, and whenever they drink a beer, they check in at the bar, and they check in the beer, and they rate it right away, and this is a really big thing in the scene. So you have to be completely in tune, and we also approach it, I think, like a digital startup, and we sell our beers online, so that's what we do.
I also read that you selectively support social projects. Why, as a young startup, is that important to you? Have you decided to do that, and how do you select them?
Yeah, for us it's really important because we feel part of the Berlin community, and as I said, sustainability is really important for us, from the raw materials, from the partners we brew with, and this also for us is really giving back to Berlin, and so for us this was really clear right from the beginning that we're going to do this. How we selected. So for the first project we were working with is called the Kulturloge, which basically gives cultural tickets like concerts and theater to people from low income classes. So for us, the projects that we select are kind of more in the culture realm, or everything that is ecological. So the next one is probably going to be an urban gardening project.
Mm-hmm. Nice. What do you look for in applications you might get?
We had no clue about brewing beer, probably 8 months ago. So you don't necessarily have to know a lot about the thing, but you have to be really, really passionate about it. So I hope we're going to grow. We're going to grow soon. Right now we're concentrating on Berlin, but we do obviously have plans to go to other cities. And so I think that's the most important thing, being passionate about what you do.
Okay, and a year from now, what do you think? Where will you be? What will you do?
I hope that we're going to be one of the most well-known craft beer brands in Germany. So that's for sure. So not only in Berlin.
Okay. Well, from the audience, other questions to Katharina and her Berlo beer? Yes, we have one question there, and I think one in the back.
Where? right now, we started 2 months ago, so this is really, really new. Right now, we sell it all over Berlin, in restaurants, in bars, in like small selective retail shops. So for us, it's really important to build up the brand. And we very selectively sponsor events. And I mean, like I said, we're super happy to be here and have this opportunity. We also sell online. You know, with beer, the really crucial factor is distribution and logistics. So this is actually a really complex business because you have this, you know, huge, I don't know, weight and big crate which is gone in 10 minutes. So and at a low price. So organizing distribution is really crucial, and we need partners in different cities. And I think for that you first have to build up a brand that gets traction in a single market. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yes, Anna. Did the existing beer brands react in some way? Is that the question? Okay.
They haven't called us yet. You mean craft beer or the big companies? I mean, I think the craft beer trend is really starting now in Germany. So the big companies are definitely have an eye on it. I think in terms of numbers, it's not relevant for them yet. But they definitely see that there is a huge change in consumer behavior because, like I said, I think the beer market in Germany has really been lacking diversity. I mean, of course, there are like 2,000 breweries, but they all kind of do the same beer styles. They're all very, very traditional. And so I think they're going to start seeing that in a few years. In the US, for example, this year, craft beer overtook, well, I mean, all the craft beer brands overtook Budweiser consumption for the first time this year, which was actually a huge number. So craft beer in the US is now at 25% market share. So I think it's going to take a little while, and obviously the baseline, the quality of beer in Germany is a lot better than it used to be. Well, it's great than it used to be in the US, but I think the big companies are going to react to that soon.
Okay, thank you all. Do we have time for a last question? Yeah, one last question.
Very good question. It really started off as a super crazy idea. I knew craft beer from living abroad, and I always just loved being in a bar and trying out the different beers, and the labels were creative, and people were so passionate about trying different things. And I thought that would be so cool to do a little cool beer brand at some point. And then, so Christian and I, we studied together, and we had this night where we had a lot of beers, and it turned out that we both wanted to do something with beer at some point in our lives. And you know what? That's how it started. And then we started looking for a brewmaster because we knew, you know what, it's no use like trying to learn this ourselves. And we found this young guy, 26 years old, who has been brewing since he was 16 and really wanted to go off on his own. And I think that was really crucial for us because we didn't want to do just like a marketing thing where we create the brand and then we just pay somebody. But it was really important that we do this as a team and found this as a team. So he is, you know, a real co-founder, and he's a crucial part of this. So it started off as a crazy idea, but like I said, it's really satisfying to create a real product and share it with your friends, and beer is a great example for that.
All right, if you're curious, come to the party and try it tonight. Thank you, Katharina.
Thank you.
Thank you all.